Hey there guys, DMO73 here, bringing you a very different feature match for the day. I'm actually looking at a brand new format, or not really brand new, but it's been around for a while. It's a fan-created format called Epic Stories. I sat down with my buddy Frank but the day before the Ohio GP, and he built me this list, and I wanted to give it a try. So the way this format works is every deck, it's a 60-card deck, and a 20-stone deck, and every single card outside of basic stones in your deck is only one-ofs. So you're only allowed to have one of any copy of any card, including special stones, in your main and stone deck, outside of basic stones, of course. I am playing, and then also the cards in your deck can only match the color identity of your two rulers. So you see we have two rulers here, and then there's a bunch of other rules, and a link to the kind of Epic Stories rules and Facebook group is down below. But it's a really fun format, very similar to Commander from Magic. So I am playing Father and Son Fairy Tales with Millium and Grimm as my ruler. That's a Dark Grimm. And so that's the reason why you're going to see me play different color Fairy Tales outside of white, is because the ability of Grimm and Millium to be able to play other colors also allows me to kind of change the way I build my deck outside of the normal rules. And Frank is playing a blue, red, green, colorless Joan of Arc and Christie list, and the reason why he's doing this is he uses Christie for draw power because of her extra ability to tap and draw him cards, and then Jeanne is kind of like his powerhouse. So he calls his first stone, gets a wind magic stone, goes to me, and for me, Grimm is just going to be my powerhouse, my utility card here. He's going to be tapping for stone every turn, helping me search for the fairy tales that I need, and then Millium's going to try to come in and do the beatdown. So on my first turn, I just play a fairy tale of the Fairy? I think this is Tinkerbell the Fairy, not Tinkerbell the Spirit. 1/1 gets gonna be bigger. Goes to Frank, and he plays the Vingolf 3 Kaguya. He's gonna try to create a bunch of tokens with Kaguya bunny tokens, 1/1s. So you're gonna see some. The fact is, this card, this format, every card is legal. There's no card that's illegal. And so you're going to see some kind of old school Grimm format cards. I'm actually going to use my Energize to play Kai, the Frozen Heart, who gets those 3 counters, and then he can't attack or block until he's lost those counters. And every time the creature dies, he loses a counter. But he's a 12/12, so once he gets done, it's a big beater. And then Tinkerbell came in there, hit him for 3. End of his turn, he makes his bunny, goes to his turn, calls for stone, and then plays Shakespeare. And with 20 different stones in his deck, Shakespeare will always hit a different named stone, I think. So the first stone must have been a water stone. Hits a wind magic stone, which gets to come into play because it's different name than the other stones. So it pokes me for 1 with that bunny. It's not a big deal because Kai can't block, but Kai's about to be able to do some work because I play Gerda. I can't remember exactly what her tagline is, but she can remove counters from any resonator to give herself swiftness, flying, or target attack, precision. So remove the 3 counters from Kai, get to go in and attack the Kaguya to get her off the board, the bunny in the air. And then Tinkerbell can fly in to take care of the other bunny, the tapped bunny. So it's about keeping kind of creatures out of the way. Don't want to get kind of swarmed by them, and then Kai can come in and finish the job later if he needs to. I don't know if there's a reason why I didn't swing there other than just to avoid taking 4 damage, I guess, but in a format with 8,000 life, dealing 1,200 that early might have been kind of relevant. Taps for a stone, hits a wind magic stone here. Knows he's got to deal with that Kai here pretty fast. Gonna play Maribel, this insane self-aware machine, which is also a 12/12, so there you can start trading and stuff. Before the upkeep, I'm gonna go ahead and use Grimm's effect. For those of you who don't know, Grimm can pay 1 of any color, pitch a fairy tale from his hand, and then draw any fairy tale I need from the deck. In a deck full of one-of fairy tales, being able to grab whatever I need for the situation is insanely good for a format like this. Just the consistency of it is really, really nice, especially since I'm not going to be able to bank on drawing exactly the fairy tale that I need for the situation. So Grimm becomes this ultimate toolbox, especially since it's so cheap. Tapping Grim again for a stone, gets my 4th basic stone there. Paying 4 to play that Etna the Snow Queen that I just recently grabbed. And I will use the Awakening to lock down Maribel. So as long as Etna is on the field, that Maribel will not be able to untap during the recovery phase, which is awesome. Swing in for 6 with Gerda, and then swing in for 7 in the air with Tinkerbell. And then again, I can just leave that Kai up because he's safe at this point. You see him untap the Maribel. We're going to catch it here in a second that he can't actually do that. Hits a Moonshade Stone. One thing about this format is if you call for stone in one turn, you can't do judgment, even if your other ruler is untapped. But then once you have a judged ruler, the other ruler that's back in the back row can tap for stone. So he's going to play with Awakening the Dragon here, which will tap down my Tinkerbell and my Kai, leaving them tapped down for a turn. And then burn the Etna out of the way. So that Maribel is going to start to come into play here shortly, which is not a good thing. And I do the same thing, muscle memory, just untapping stuff. It's been a while since we've had effects that keep things locked down for a turn, especially in New Frontiers. So calling for stone, I get my Almerius, the Levitating Stone, which produces white, or I can tap it and another white source to give anything I control flying for the turn, which is pretty relevant in a format like this. I'm going to go ahead and pay 2. To play Autoractia and draw a card. So this is also really good in a format like this, especially with Grim having Fairy Tales of all colors and Void cards in my deck. Essentially, if the game goes long, I can use Autoractia on my own stuff and eventually get to an alternative win con if I can't close the game with life. And then I just pass the turn here. So, call stone for a Blasting Waves. He's got all of his stuff recovered here. Frank's going to spend, I believe, 1. So out comes a Maribel, which is not good for me, because that means that my Autoractia, if I did flip it, would just get popped. He's going to use his Moonshade to pay 1 to let Maribel take the abilities and attack of the dragon for the turn, and he's going to fly over and kill my Kai. So there goes my big attacker for the turn, or attacker that's currently on the board. Then Frank is going to tap all but 1 to play Kurt Irving, which is a card from Vingolf 2. It's a 10/10 with Swiftness, and every single time it deals damage to something and that thing goes to the grave, the owner of that card gets 500 damage. So Kurt's going to kill my Tinkerbell, which takes 5 damage to me, and then at that point I believe he passes the turn. So wanted to get that Maribel out of the way because that can be a big pain, especially with a 10/10 and a 10/10 flyer on the board. I'm going to flash in Glorious at the end of the turn to kill the Maribel, so get that off the way. Looking at my hand here, I gotta try to figure out how to deal with both of those big old flyers. Then I realize I haven't tapped for stone yet, so what I'm gonna do here is use Grimm's Effect to search for a Resonator. Decided to grab Pied Piper of Hamelin. And then I'll tap for stone, get the 5th stone, and then cast Pied Piper of Hamelin, who, for those of you who don't know, is a 10/10 that when he enters, he's an enter effect that can tap down a Resonator, and it stays tapped as long as Pied Piper is on the field. And then every time he attacks, he also gets to lock something down. So if If Frank doesn't really deal with this Pied Piper immediately, or as fast as he can, slowly and steadily, his board is going to be massively locked down, to the point where that Pied Piper is just devastating and nothing's going to stick. Especially if I can grab my protection of the Seraph and put it on the Pied Piper. That's very good for me, because it just means that I get to just lock down everything. Pied Piper can't be attacked or targeted, and slowly but surely the entire board becomes locked down. And having Almerius means that he can just fly over things and deal 1,000 damage every turn. So he's going to play the Ea, Goddess of Water, which will let him Resonance to draw cards later, as well as give him protection from the Hamlin. The Hamlin can't target it because it has protection from Resonators. Swings in the air for the Dragon for a grand. Can't stop it. Take a grand, go down to 6. Passes the turn there. Gonna go ahead and call for stone. I'm gonna pay 2 to play Grib the Adventure of Fairy Tales, pumping up Hamlin +2/+2 for the turn. And then I'm gonna give Hamlin flying. Going to attack, and I forget that Ea has barrier resonators, so I can't lock it down with Hamlin, which is a little unfortunate. But I want to try to get that dragon off the board. The hope was to swing at the dragon and lock down Ea. So instead I'll just swing at his face and then block, and then lock down the dragon. What I also could do here is I could swing at the dragon to kill it and then lock down Shakespeare. That would also be fine. I just kind of get my game thrown off there by the fact that Ea has barrier from resonator effects. So past the turn there, I want to leave up Will to be able to search, as well as to use my Maribel to pop his Maribel, so that I eventually can get that Ataractia flipped over. He's going to use in Mood Start during the upkeep to change the race of my Hamlin, so he's now a human, which is not going to be good here because he's about to flip Joan of Arc. And what she does is when she enters, she destroys all other humans, and that is going to be my entire board. And I'm about to take a lot of damage. Thankfully, the Kurt Irving and the dragon are already tapped, so they're not going to come back. But all of the resonators on my board are just done, and I have to take the damage from Ea, taking me down to 5,000. And then another 4 from Shakespeare, taking me down to 46. So pretty even back and forth game here. During the upkeep, I'm going to pop the Maribel like I wanted to do. Call for another stone. I start to go to play Glinda here to form as a protection, but then I kind of catch what I'm trying to do, and I say, wait a minute, I played the wrong cards in the wrong order. So I play Abel here, Avenger of the Gods, with the Awakening, which will destroy all of the resonators on the board. So just like my board got wiped, I'm going to wipe Frank's right back, and then I'm going to play the Glinda. And the purpose of the Glinda is just to be able to maybe make Frank have to spend a little bit of extra will if he wants to cast a spell. And then at the end of the turn, Frank's just going to flesh and Shion, just to have a body on board, because the enter effect is worthless at that point. So Frank's going to recover. Thinking about how he wants to pay things here. Make sure he taps correctly. He's gonna pay 2, 3, use one of his counters from his countdown stone to play out a Hansel, which will help him continue to draw stuff. Then pays 2 to play a Christie, Slayer of the Overlord, and then pay 1 more to pump her up to kill Leglinda. And then he swings with the Joan of Arc, and knowing that he can just burn me out of the way, or he can't burn me out of the way, so I could block here with Abel, but I'm just like, I'll take the 1200 damage, go down to 34. I'm not terribly concerned, and I'd rather have a creature. So going to me, get to recover. I'm going to go ahead and pay 3. I have a Captain Hook in my hand to try to get some creatures off the board. So I'm debating whether or not to try to use Autorakti this turn or use Captain Hook. Still haven't called for turn here. So knowing that I have to deal with that Joan of Arc, but I also still need to get those creatures off the board, I'm gonna go ahead and use Millium to Judgment, kind of form a wall here. And the reason why this is good is it's also gonna ramp me a stone, which rulers that can do that in this game this format are pretty strong, just because you don't have to worry about wasting a turn, not miss a stone call and keep up with your opponent. Then play 5, leaving 1 open to pay the Captain Hook. At which point I will bounce the Shion and the Hansel back to his hand. Main reason because those are the most expensive. And have these kind of additional effects. I'm not super worried about Slayer of the Overlord at this point. He's going to go ahead and make Captain Hook a human for the turn. And then he's going to recover. So the reason why he does this with Jeanne is Jeanne has the ability to deal damage to humans. So if I decide to try to block with him, block with Captain Hook, he can just force it out of the way. This is especially helpful if he does play a Gleipnir in his deck, the red binding String of Fate, which is one of the regalia, Valentina's regalia to be exact. So I'm going to go ahead and block with Millium and pump up Millium +2/+2. So at the very least, this is going to be a trade because I can roll a 1. But my hope is that with the 5, the roll being a 5 puts me up to being a 16/16. That I can actually just kill his Joan of Arc and move on. But he happens to have this the feasting that can do inheritance, so I'll still get killed. But I'm fine because I didn't take that damage, and I made him waste a card in a sense. Out comes that Maribel, which unfortunately is not going to get him anything because he's already gone through both of the Maribel cards in his deck. Passes the turn to me there. During the upkeep, or during the phase, trying to think of what I can do to answer a Jade Ruler when it hits me, that I have a card in my deck that I can continually search that will never have to worry about not being able to block, and that is everybody's favorite fairy tale, Cheshire Cat. So I'm like, oh wait, I can do this classic move that used to be very common in the Grim format area called catwalling, which is where you just play Cheshire Cat after Cheshire Cat after Cheshire Cat, and in a format where there's only one of it, I can just continually search it over and over and over again. There's no reason to not grab it at this point to help me deal with Joan of Arc. If I can make his heaviest creature something that's not really that big of a threat, then I'm in a good shape to try to kind of regain control of this game. try to shuffle up. There's a lot of cards to deal with here. And then Frank during the after I recover, but before I move to main phase, he's gonna go ahead and cast Rachel's Smile, which will tap down everything I control, all my my resonators and all my stones. But the thing is, because of when he's casting it, I can just tap all my stones in response to float all the will. So Rachel's Smile is a really weird card. In like when you time it, you think you can kind of lock your opponent out for a turn, but it's really kind of designed to be cast at the end of your opponent's turn so that they can't do anything during your turn, just because of when will disappears. So when will disappears right after you recover all your stones and then at the end of turn. So by casting it when he did, he still forced me to float all of that will, but I still have 9 will to use for the entire turn. And with Ataraktia, that, you know, I'm gonna be able to flip here at that point, which is really nice for me. And I still haven't called for stone, so technically I'm going to be sitting at 10 will. So I'll tap for stone. Spend one of the floating to play out the Cheshire Cat. Happen to draw into Izanagi, which is excellent at this point, but still only would hit 2 creatures. And I also have the Addition Searching Vingolf 2 card, which also isn't super great at this point. But I do have that Protection of the Seraph, which will be very, very nice. So what I could do here is I have several options. I could either play Izanagi, rip 2 cards, and then play Protection of the Seraph on him, so he just can't ever be targeted or targeted by anything or attacked, and then he's just a 19-19 or a 17-17, which makes him a very, very present threat. Or I could flip over the Ataraktia and play the long game to be able to remove maybe any future threats that Frank can throw out, especially considering how Maribel and Priscia aren't super terrifying at this point. So I am going to spend 7, so this leaves me with 1 floating will still, because I spent 1 to play Cheshire Cat and I had 8, or 9. So flip over Ataraktia. So now I'll be able to use this as like a once per turn removal and my alternative win con. And if Frank kind of keeps the game slow, I can kind of keep, if I can keep control of the board, I can go find a Fairy Tale that matches the color I need, play it, remove it, find a Fairy Tale that matches the color I need, play it, remove it, so on and so forth, and then get to the alternative win con without even having to kill Frank. And I'm going to play that Protection of the Seraph on the hook. Reason why I'm doing that is because it's cheaper. This leaves me with 1 stone up to be able to search for a Fairy Tale next turn once Cheshire Cat gets killed, and he can't use Joan of Arc to now eliminate kind of my biggest threat on the board. Taps for a Vaporization Stone. He decides to pay the 3 will for it. Goes down to 47. I mean, he has that Steam Explosion in his hand, which is pretty strong at this point, if I'm being honest, because there's no cancel spells in light, and so if he gets to enough stones and gets my life low enough, that's just gonna resolve, and can just finish me off. Now he has to be careful here. He has to kind of keep his own creatures on board or keep my creatures on board, something that he can target with Steam Explosion, but it's still a very good card for him. Plays 3 here to play Guardia, which will let him top deck the stone that he needs. You saw him play the Moonlight Stone, which can play for any color his other stones can produce, which is a very strong card for him, especially being such a color-hungry deck. Swings, Cheshire Cat blocks, gets cycled back into the deck to be grabbed later. Christie is going to swing in, take the 400 damage, go down to 30. Reason why I waited there is because I wanted to try to see if he would try to pump her up and then remove in response to make him waste more will, but he decides to just pass the turn and I attempt to remove the Maribel, at which point he plays Breath of the God, Breath of the False God, I believe, an old Grim card that he can sacrifice a creature when he casts it to draw 2, but if it's a human, he can draw 3 cards instead. So just refilling his hand there and keeping me from getting a card removed, which is nice. So I get to draw for turn, get to pitch a Fairy Tale that I don't need to go back and grab that Cheshire Cat, which is, you know, like I said, super important at this point. Cheshire Cat is just my way of dealing with Joan of Arc. Go ahead and recover. Calling for stone. Out comes Cheshire Cat again. And play Confectioner Hansel, which is awesome because it's going to help me regain life as well as gets me the magic sweets. Out comes the Izanagi to get rid of the other 2 cards on the field, thus putting me in a very strong position here. Kind of re-establish that I have a board and he does not, and I'm going to be able to start poking, block whatever he throws down, remove any threats that he brings out that are before they can make anything super big, and then block with Cheshire Cat and continually swing in with Hook for 1,000 damage each turn to whittle him down to nothing. So he's going to go ahead and make Izanagi a human and attempt to burn it during the upkeep. And I'm going to go ahead and just use the Magic Sweets in response to protect Izanagi for the turn, because this also tells him that he probably shouldn't swing with Joan of Arc, because she will most likely die, because she will be, he's a 19/19 that can't be targeted. So unless he has a way to massively pump up, which is unlikely since he already used Feasting, that Joan of Arc is just going to die if it swings. Plays out the Wendy. And then plays out for 6 the Valentina Vingolf 3 Resonator. So this is what I'm talking about with Ataraktia, the Regalia. So if he heavily invests in a card like this, I can just get rid of it during his turn, leaving him with a pretty non-impactful board state to be able to deal with what I'm about to throw at him this turn. I'm going to go ahead and remove the Valentina with the Ataraktia, get my first card removed by it, which gets me a blue. If I can get a green, a white, a black, a red, and a void card removed with Ataraktia, and then tap one more time, I just win the game. So, not that that's likely going to happen, but it is nice to have access to. During the upkeep, I'm going to go ahead and pitch that Jack. There's really no point in having it. Giant's not going to do much, and I don't want to lose my own board with Cheshire Cat. I just need some more versatility here, I think. Now you're going to see me kind of fiddle through here a lot. You're going to see me grab some stuff that I can't grab. Like, the Grim from Bingolf 3 is not actually a fairy tale, and I know this, but I grab it, and I'm like, oh wait, I can't do that. I think in this situation, I'm just trying to turn, during the upkeep, make use of the will to turn Jack into something that's a little bit more relevant. At this point, time doesn't really do much. Little Prince is good because he would be very, very large, having so many other things, but so you see I start to grab the Grim, and then I go, wait a minute, he's not a fairy tale. But I kind of want to save Little Prince to gain some life if I need to. So I go ahead and just grab Rapunzel, just because at this point with so many Resonators, if she sticks, I can start going towards the OTK with him being so low on life. Tap and gain 200 life from the Hansel, and then get to recover. See, the other card I have in there in my hand is actually Tank, which puts me in an amazing position. Having the Tank just means I'm going to be able to tap down Joan of Arc every turn, so now I don't even have to worry about using Cheshire Cat for it. I'm just putting him in the situation where he's just locked out from being able to touch me, which is excellent. I can also use it to gain life if I need to, which is also very nice. Give flying to Captain Hook, swing in for 1,000, taking that at 27. Might as well. I probably should just go ahead and tap down his Joan of Arc and swing with the Izanagi. There's really no reason not to, but I'd rather tap down Jeanne on his turn. You know, Cheshire Cat's already going to be dealing with stuff, so I go ahead and try and swing with the Izanagi. And what he does in response here is actually pretty clever. So he brings back that Shion from before and just pumps up the defense of Joan of Arc and all of his water resonators that he has on the field, which is good. And then he doesn't want to worry about losing his Jeanne at this point, because if he loses his Jeanne, it's probably over. And then he just blocks with the Shion. So essentially just flashed in a resonator to block. I also could swing in here with Abel if I wanted to, and I probably should just to put pressure on, but I decided to just pass and play patient. And then in the priority sequence, after he recovers but before he moves to the main phase, I'm just going to go ahead and tap down Jeanne, just so that's completely locked out for the turn. Now mind you, we haven't seen each other's deck lists, really like studied them or anything, so I'm completely unaware of the fact that I don't, that he has that Steam Explosion possibility. In response to the tapping down, he's just going to tap down Jeanne to prevent all damage that Abel would do for the turn, then call for Stone. So essentially at this point between Izanagi and Hook, he is staring down lethal, which is no good for him. Swings in for the damage, and I go to block with Abel, and I'm like, oh wait, she can't kill him, or he can't kill her. So then I don't block, which is just a misplay. Like, there's no reason for me not to block with Abel, especially since I know that he gets to ramp a stone for doing that. Even if I can't kill it, if he was for some reason going to try to pump it up to kill Abel, I could just use Ataraktia and remove it in response. He goes ahead and casts Pale Moon, which is an old edition that for 1 blue can sacrifice itself to bounce any resonator on the board. And he's going to bounce that Izanagi back to my hand, which is smart because he's just staring down lethal. He has to deal with it immediately. And then he's going to go ahead and here and cast World Flame Summoning. He's thinking about it. Leaving up Mood Dart and 1 other stone, he's going to cast World Flame Summoning, which will deal with the modes of 8 damage to my board and then 8 damage to me. In response, I'm going to go ahead and try to gain some life off of Hansel. So I'll go back up to 3,000 and then lose Abel, Cheshire Cat, and Hansel. Cheshire Cat gets shuffled back into the deck, so I can still grab her next turn, which is nice. And all I have at this point is Hook. I'm going to go ahead and get the Dorothy out of the way. Now, what I could have done here, which would have been like really snazzy, is during the end of his turn, I could have searched for a fairy tale. I'm trying to remember if Grim can do it during both turns. He might be able to. I could have searched during the end of his turn, grabbed the fairy tale that has swiftness, like Little Red, and then search during my turn to grab the other resonator I have that has swiftness, which is the giant, and then I would have 32 damage, so I would just be able to kill it, plus with the hexproof and everything else, and him only with 3 stones, I would just have lethal, but again, I don't grab it. I grab the fairy, I have draw into the Fairy Tale Kingdom Alexandria, which will let me untap Captain Hook, which is nice. I go ahead and pitch Gretel from CFC to go grab Cheshire Cat and bring it back into play and draw some cards. So the problem here now is with the stones that Frank has, he actually has enough to be able to kill me with Steam Explosion. He has exactly 11 stones, which puts me at 22 life. But he doesn't have any creatures on board, so if I continue to play things that he can't target, then I'm just safe. So I get to draw 2. See, I have that giant in my hand, which is very nice. I can just play it, deal 15, and then kill it. Then it'll get banished at the end of the turn, which I should do here to just put him down to 2 life. But I'm trying to make use of tank really well. And put it back on top of the deck. And then again, wanting to try to push for that damage next turn, I think we were 200 off on life, so I was thinking that the Thumbelina that I'm about to play was my play to try to win the game. Go ahead and cast Thumbelina. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to try to get the +2/+2 next turn. And then at the end of the turn, the trigger's going to come in, and I'm going to get to untap Hook, which is nice. So I left myself open here in the fact that Thumbelina gets to get targeted by Steam Explosion. So like, if he casts Steam Explosion here, I just lose. Especially considering the fact that, once again, I'm just going to go ahead and tap down Joan of Arc. There's no reason for me to do that. There's no reason for me to tap down Joan of Arc at this point. I have Cheshire Cat to block her forever. I might as well use tank to do something a little bit more effective. You know, maybe I'm concerned that he suddenly can get flying and hit me for a bunch of damage, but at which point I can just, you know, make Hook flying and trade. So he goes ahead and casts, so maybe Frank miscounted his stones here too. He goes ahead and casts Scheherazade, which when she enters the field, you get to name a resonator race, or just a race, and nothing of that race can attack him, the player. It can attack creatures and J-Rollers, just not him as the player. So by casting and calling Fairy Tales, then he just gets to make it so I can't swing at his face. But I think he maybe forgot that I have Izanagi in hand, so that just gets to get bounced. He calls for stone. Goes ahead and casts Hansel because he wants to be able to have another little blocker as well. To maybe answer Thumbelina, I guess, and it was well as to be able to draw cards, and then passes the turn there. So going into my turn, draw for turn. I know what I drop decked. It's I'm gonna go ahead and add a counter onto Thumbelina so that she can then immediately remove it and give something +2/+2. Gonna go ahead and give Hook flying, and I'm gonna go search for a Fairy Tale. And I go ahead and pitch the Rapunzel. Never cast her, but she gets pitched, and I'm gonna think about what I want to grab here. Knowing what his board is, knowing what he's got, I want to try to shuffle my graveyard back in as well. I'm gonna go ahead and crack the horn, go back into my deck, just to have re-access to everything. I'm gonna go ahead and grab Little Red. So at this point, she'll be a 7/7 with swiftness, precision, and first strike, which is excellent. So with Hook and her, I have 17 damage. Plus, I have the big swiftness guy who can deal 15 or even 17 just by himself with Thumbelina. So the problem is I can't cast. I don't think I have enough stones to cast both Izanagi and the big old giant. Tap for stone again, get another stone here, pay the 6, cast Izanagi. Izanagi's going to get to get rid of those 2 resonators. In response to that, knowing that they're going to get removed anyway, he wants to try to get my Izanagi off the board, or try to force me to use the tank. So he's just going to go ahead and use Scheherazad's effect to RFG a card from the game. Knowing he's going to lose his Scheherazade and Hansel forever, he doesn't want me to have the Izanagi, so those are just going to get removed, but by him using her effect. Paying 2 green. And 3 others to remove it. At that point, though, he has unfortunately made the mistake of opening himself up completely, so out comes Red Riding Hood. 10 damage comes in from Hook in the air, putting him down to 7 or 9 if we miscounted his life. And then I can remove the 1 counter. And at this point, I'm completely protected, like having tank as well to be able to give hexproof to Red Riding Hood if I need to. I can pump her up to being a 900 attack with Thumbelina and get the additional damage. So that is the end of the game. Frank realizes he mistapped there. He could have played the Alice a little bit differently if he hadn't tapped on my turn. Excellent, excellent fun format. I definitely recommend you guys give it a shot. Being able to play these one-ups of cards that we've seen so long ago is a lot of fun. It's a really hilarious format to play one-on-one. And you can even play this in groups with, you know, multiple people. But check out the list later up this week. Huge thanks again. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, this is DMO73 signing off.